Okay, so we are going live.
Okay, so shall we start?
Yeah. So hello everyone and welcome on ArchiDiaries for another live interview as part of our interview series, which is titled as Reflections on Architecture and Design. Reflections on Architecture and Design is essentially an interview series where we try to talk to diverse kinds of people, architects, designers, furniture designers, and it's an open-ended sort of an event that we try to make sure that at least twice a month we get people on board and get interesting conversations going. So far, we have managed to do 11 very interesting live interviews, and we hope to continue on this journey. And I'm really excited to share that for our 12th interview, today we have with us architect Shruti Dimri, principal at Anagram Architects, New Delhi, India. Shruti, welcome on ArchiDiaries.
Thank you to ArchiDiaries for having me over. It sounds like an interesting platform, where this sort of interaction at this level can be done. We talk about projects, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about Anagram Architects. We have been now this year, 2022, we finished 20 years in the business. It was established by Madhav Raman and Beppu Dimri back in 2001, right after their college. I joined them about 10 years back, and our firm is based out of Hoskas, Delhi, and we, we've been asked very often the kind of, what kind of work we do, or if there is a category that we specialize in. And after 20 years, I could say that we don't restrict ourselves to a certain kind of typology of architecture, because we find it interesting to be involved in different kinds of works, different kinds of scales, different kinds of clients as well, because the kind of client that one is involved with dictates to a large extent the project outcome and the process also. So we like to work with different kinds of people. Over the last 20 years that we've worked on different projects, what we have, I would say, empirically found the three things that are most important to us, that sort of keep continuing through our projects, are these. One is this inherent desire to innovate. And by innovate, of course, you're in design profession, so you will want to create something that's not been done before, create something new. But innovation really at the core of everything guides our practice in terms of how we can use materials differently, how program can be innovated upon. The second thing that's important to our practice is, not surprisingly, sustainability and the concern for being conservative towards, conservative in a profession that inherently requires you to use and extensively use resources that are limited, resources that are available to us. So sustainability, very often repeated word, stands at the core of how we approach design. And the third, this is more a recent realization, is that the kind of people that we work with is very, very important to us. So, people above projects, that's what we say in our studio. So these three things broadly guide us through our practice. I would like to today show you, I think, 6 projects in detail that we have built over time. These are not all recent projects. Some of them are as old as 15, 20, really early years of our practice. Some are very recent. And then I want to show you, because I would like to show you 5 of our unbuilt projects that sort of define our style, which we actually say that we don't have a style. In fact, we would like to have a style that we follow in a project and then do the complete opposite of that next time, because that's what excites us. That's what excites us, to not only do something that no one's done, but even we haven't done before. So over a period of 20 years, I think we have garnered a reputation where clients come to us to make something that they haven't seen before. They will come to us and we show them our profile, our portfolio, and they say that each of your projects look different. So even though I have come here because I liked a certain project, and we looked you up and we came to you, but this is not what we want. We want something that we've not seen before. So which is why process becomes really important to how you approach something. I will now share my screen.
Yeah, please.
I'm going to start with this project we finished about 10 years back. It's an office building. I'll tell you why it's called The Digit. But it's a small 5-floor, still plus 4 floors building on New Rohtak Road. It's in front of Liberty Cinema. And it's an office building for what we call a highway sign company, a billboard company, basically. So a billboard company basically provides branding for various different brands at a highway level. And so for us, it was important that sense of identity that they provide to different brands got communicated in the building itself. And this sense of identity, we thought, what better than the notion of or the idiom of a thumbprint, for a sense of identity. And this thumbprint, the way you see these lines that occur on every unique thumb in the world, and the way the hyperbolic shape of the thumb is, that sort of we literally translated to get a unique symbol of a building on that road, on that busy highway where all the buildings about the same size, about the same proportion and height, all look very similar because they're all dabbas lined, one after the other. So this shape, when you translate into the building elevation, it stands out amongst a very regular continuous elevation on the road. This is a typical plan. So I'll take you through the concept of how each floor plate evolves. But this is broadly how the plan sits. There is a core in one corner. And you'll see this when you see the elevation, how that translates to the third dimension. And there is a central reception. If you see, the reception is also an ellipse kind of drawing, again, from a thumb and thumbprint. And that's the front elevation of the building. So if you see in terms of plan, it has no setback in front. It's an edge-to-edge building, like the building that you see next to it, which typically gives any plot very few options of on which side you can open windows. You typically will have windows in front or at the back, and both your sides are dead, right? Because you want to maximize the floor plate. But in this office, how the hierarchy of the office is, which is that fewer people at the top, they needed to be on the top floor, and the heart of the office, which consists of the maximum number of people, those were housed on the lower floor. So gradually the floor plate could recede, inside, and we could get this shape. By doing this shape, it also provided an opportunity to cut windows on the side, on the longer side of the site. So even though right now there is no building next to this plot, but if when in the future a building does come up, it will not take away from the windows that are lined all across on the side elevation, which also meant that you could get on each floor plate, you could get lights, natural light coming not just from front and the back, but also from the side. The front elevation, this elliptical thing that you see in front, faces dead the west side. And as you know, in North India, in Delhi, west side is really from where you get the harshest sun, especially in summers after 3 o'clock. So we decided to have this shimmery facade, which was designed to, if you can notice in the picture, it showcases a P. P is for Pioneer Advertising. That's the name of the office of the firm that is housed here. So that P was carved out in a pixelated sheet. So we drew that sheet, and then in an aluminum sheet it was cut out, and exactly where the P is in the center, these cutout circles were then pivoted and attached back, so that when the wind movement occurs on this road, these little pivots shimmer, through because of the wind movement. So these little details, quirky details, something that makes it almost is like a highway sign when you cross. It's difficult to miss this building. In fact, people who've not known the building have come to us and referred to us saying that, on such and such road, have you seen that building? Then we tell them about it. That's the concept behind it. So that was the front elevation. This is the picture that you see is the terrace, where the parabola sort of folds around and it becomes this covered, slightly louvered open space. It's protected from direct sunlight, so it provides a very nice spill out space for people to sort of dine outside in lunch hours. That's another picture from the front. There is a little nazar battu that the client has put on the elevation, but otherwise you see all of these flickering little pivoted discs that are attached to the front elevation. That's the reception. If you remember, at the back, this is the elliptical entrance hall, and with curved plywood, flexible plywood, we had created this thumbprint. I don't think we traced out any particular thumb, so I would love to say that this thumb is an exact replica of such and such thumb, but no, it's broadly graphic, and to get that interpretation in the ceiling like that. So that was one building. Now I'm going to show you another 4 or 5 of our buildings in detail, but today I've picked projects to show you that particularly talk about or show you how we've approached elevation design. So elevation design, building, especially in Delhi where the plots are tight, you have that one frontage very often only, unless it's a corner plot. And then what can you do on that front elevation to sort of have that identity or have that unique expression, even if your building footprint is small. This building that I'm going to show you now, South Asian Human Rights Documentation Center, is a very, very small building in Hoskas, near outside Hoskas extension. It is small, as in it's a 50 square meter plot, and it's a corner plot, and this wall that you see again faces the west. So it, facing the west is usually a challenge because you can't then can't give a lot of glazing on that wall, which you would really usually prefer, because then you can get a lot of natural ventilation, but then it provides an opportunity to do something completely different or try something different. Now this is one of our first projects, which means it was finished in 2004. It was a very small building. It was, a small office for an NGO, and the budgets were really, really limited. So, at that time, we were sort of relegated to using brick and trying to interpret brick to make something that is interesting. It was quite an uphill task at that time because, since then, since 2004 and 5, we've seen a lot of advancement in using robotic arms and placing exactly these bricks that are turning around like that, angle by angle. But at that time, for an untrained mason on site who'd not done or seen anything like this before, it was quite a challenge. In fact, when I say it was a challenge, what I mean is that our first few attempts to do something which we had drawn in a SketchUp model or drawn in plan, basically, was really difficult to execute on site, because each time you went and twisted the next course of brick around, we would lose the center of gravity and the whole thing would topple over. So then, we had to work with the masons. Luckily, we had masons who, appreciated the passion with which we were trying to figure something out. And when you work with, people who work with their hands and they know their craft, they are themselves able to come up with suggestions that may work or may make this idea work. So they came up with the suggestion of making these negative wooden block wedges. So with each course, every time you were ready to lay a new course on top, he would place a blocker wedge and then place the next brick on top. So that's how all over this wall spans across 4 floors, even though it looks like it's 8 courses, because in one floor there are twice the number of times the brick walls. And in the center, if you see in the right picture also, it looks like there's a fire burning inside, but really that's evening light. We miss a few intermediate columns of brick. So what is a wall on one side then becomes a jali in between on top. This was also one of our most celebrated works. It was widely awarded, got us a lot of early international acclaim. So it remains quite close to our hearts. That's the way the street is. So if you see on the left hand side, beyond what looks like a fence, is actually an urban village. So really small, juggies, small settlements are on one side, and that's the end of the urban village, which is actually an unregularized colony. So then, when you walk across the street, again, you are in a very narrow street with, buildings quite close to you, you're not stepping too far away from a building to be able to see it. But when you walk across this wall, you suddenly see that there is the presence of something completely different from here. That's the small, humble plan of the building. If you notice, the staircase doesn't even wind around, like there's no space to even have a dog-legged staircase. So you take one single flight up the next floor, and then through that office you come around to go to the next floor. That's that small that plot is. This is a picture from inside that jali. So this is the staircase. So what you get is no direct west sunlight onto the inside spaces. So obviously that helps bring down the thermal gain inside. And this remains open to weather. I don't think the picture shows this, but through this twirling course of bricks, we also used reinforcement, like metal bars, for it to become stable. It's not just an arrangement of bricks on top of the other that wouldn't work. But these, all these sort of things we realized, or we were able to design after having worked on site and going through a series of failures on this. That's another view. On the left hand side, you see the SketchUp model, which is the easiest thing to make, and the various courses. For each one single set of, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 10 courses before before the first course is repeated, which is why you get about, in one floor, you get 2 twirls of the brick. Okay, this next project is a residence for an artist, and this residence is situated in what is known as Kaladham, or Artists Village in Greater Noida. So this is a community where the government had parceled land to be given to different artists. So, a lot of artists could occupy space in a similar community and make houses for themselves the way they wanted, and sort of learn from each other. So this was made in collaboration with artist Anita Dubey, and she's a very not up and coming actually, she's a celebrated artist in the city. And her idea was, she wanted a house where the house, meaning the studio, which was to be almost 80% of the space, was to be her workspace, that she wanted to be like an intermingling of continuous layers. So you see how the plate sort of, this is a model of the house, but you see how one surface that starts from the top, and there is an intermediate inner layer also, which is not apparent in this section, but there are 2 layers that sort of roll around each other. And these 2 layers, when they go through different floors, there are 3 floors, ground, first and second floor, they each become a wall somewhere. When they turn around, become horizontal, they become the floor. And these 2 different layers, for them to look distinct, we used 2 different contrasting materials. One was concrete and one was broken tile. So So that was one. You'll see more diagrams of this, and I'll show you a picture. You'll see what I mean by the concrete folding around as a ribbon, with also the broken tile surface going around. If you see the lower sketch, she also wanted the house, which was a very interesting idea, for her house, an artist's house and workspace, to be a display of art in itself. So what she wanted was, she said that I want to be able to paint on the walls, let's say do art on one wall of my studio, and then to be able to turn the wall around right there so that it's immediately on display outside. So if you see these, what looks like louvers here are actually pivot surfaces, pivot walls outside, if you will. So she will create the art standing on the second floor or the first floor on it, and as soon as she swivels it around and turns it, it's on display to the world outside. You see a glimpse of, where the ribbon starts in the center of the studio space. The concrete surface, you see, this little peg that's coming out and starting to turn around. The frames that you see on the wall is, from a picture of herself from some installation that she had done before. The concrete continues on the ceiling, on the wall, and seamlessly onto the floor, cast in situ. These are the walls that you paint on or create, some other kind of art from inside. And as you can see, these can be sold and put for display. You also will notice here the broken tile flooring, which also turns into this little ledge on top of which is the railing. So, getting broken tile and arranging it, of course, it's a tedious task and it looks gorgeous. It's fine when it's running on the wall and then, curving around to go on the floor. But where it goes to the ceiling, then it's difficult to, put broken tiles onto the ceiling. So then we created these panels, which were, which were made to order, created, fixed, taken off, stuck tiles on, and then again installed in place for it to go around. So you see another picture. These are actually, this is actually one picture, and you see a staircase in the center. But you see these wraps of ribbons of these different materials that are going around. That's another photograph of the staircase, completely in metal, perforated sheet. On the left, you see walls that are waiting to get its art put on top of it. But the picture is such, you can see it right through inside to the studio. Also, this this idea of building, of having an artist's elevation, the house, as a space for display. So, she wanted at the back of the house to have this wall on which, she can have screenings and have public gatherings all around. So every elevation, every surface of the building had to be a part of her life as an artist. Right, so that was Artrovert. Next project is, we call it the Utre House. I said a little before that, we've over the years got ourselves a reputation of, doing things that have not been done before. It's sometimes not to our advantage because, there are clients who come to us looking for something they haven't seen. They want to be surprised. And then to get to that stage or to get to that iteration where both, the client and us, we both feel that, okay, we've got something that we've not done before, and we're very excited and nervous. How do you know that you've got something you've not done before? Because you're excited and you're nervous, right? So once you start feeling that, you're on the right path. But this house that I'm going to show you, we did about 23 iterations on it, because anything that we made and presented, it checked all the boxes of what one needs in a house, because it had all the rooms, it had everything, but it looked like it had been done before, or we had attempted it before. So if you see on the left hand side, a set of plans, different floor plans, and the entire house is like this amoeboid, globular shape, organic shape on a rectangular plot with absolutely rectangular orthogonal buildings on both sides. Now, this is where we finally arrived and thought that we wanted to build this. The interesting thing about this house, two interesting things about this house, and one is derived from the other, is that no single surface except what is guided by gravity, that means the floor. So other than the floor, every other surface is curvilinear. There is not a single line. I can also see the lift shaft, which is straight. But other than that, everything is curvilinear. What that means is that the doors are curved, like the surface of the door is not flat, it's curved. The frames are curved, the windows are curved, the railing is curved. The glazing that sits in the window is also not a plane, it's a curvilinear surface. And the other interesting thing then is that when you make something which is so non-standard, so not something that you can order off the shelf, then it means that you have to make it custom and with hand. So we call this the house where everything is detailed with customized expert carpenters, vendors, manufacturers. Even the flooring, I'll show you, cannot be put. Tiled flooring does not sit here very well, because tiles, you will automatically get grid lines, you'll get straight lines, they will come and hit the curvilinear walls, and then you will get these odd shapes. So we had to, for the first time, experiment with epoxy poured flooring. Now, of course, now in our own projects, we've done a lot of concrete floors and epoxy floors, but this was our first time using seamless floors, epoxy floors. So this is the front elevation. And again, like I said, when you make something that's so non-standard, you can't clad it with straight material. You can't say that I will, faceted walls also we made, but this had to be finished in a material that is well, not easy, but at least possible to wrap around the entire building. So you see these wood louvers that go all around the building. These were created from shipwreck wood that is collected, I think this place in Gujarat, where they dismantle these old ships. This is seasoned wood, so you can go and buy it and then turn it into whatever you want, and it's absolutely exterior grade because it's coming from seasoned wood from there. And then parts of this, so the other advantage, similar to, if you remember the digit that I showed you, similar building, that one was curved in the vertical direction. This is curving in plan. The advantage to this is that then you can have windows all around, because it's not sticking to the sides anywhere. There is no straight line. So anywhere, even if it goes really close to the next building, at the next moment it's sort of winding away from it again. So you can have light coming from all around. The louvers become visual barriers on one side where the building is, and then they go smaller in height in front to become the railing on this side. Then we, as you can see, also had some green wall part sections of these were converted to these green walls. This is also, I present projects and I like to talk about the things that we didn't do well in or failed in the first go. The choice of plants that we selected over here, this is a north-facing wall. It doesn't get direct light. It doesn't get a lot of sun through the day. So, the plants that we chose were completely wrong for this location because they required a lot of sun. And, we got them done, and within a month, 2 months, they were all out because they needed a lot of sun. So then the next time around, we selected plants that were more appropriate to this location. Mental note from here. That's another view from below. On the left-hand side, I've been asked this a couple of times. If you see the left side elevation, this is, again, the wood louvers are rolling around the undulating surface of the edge, and these are tied together to the structure with copper wires, because we wanted to have that sort of a handmade looking detail, and we do not want a clamp detail from inside. So each of these have been placed in place. They've been put and tied together and stapled together with copper wires. That's a view from the balcony inside. So no surface is straight. which is why you don't notice it in the door frames over here, but they're all curving. This brick detail was easy to do on this wall because a small modular material is easy to sort of mold all across. We used two kinds of bricks in this, yellow and red, to create that little interest and niche within that wall, so you could put some lights inside it. Kudaram. Kudaram, I forget now what it means in Malayalam. This is the structure that we made for the Kochi Biennale. This was about 3 years back. And so Kochi Biennale is an event that happens in 2 years' time. Artists come and display their work. And the brief to us was that we wanted to have the minimum impact building this pavilion. It is a pavilion for performing arts. And we wanted to have minimum impact on that ground, meaning we wanted to create a structure that would last the 2 months' time that the exhibition existed on site, but then we wanted to also dismantle the entire structure without having affected the terrain, the ground or the trees all around it in any major way. So this is the structure that was created. Now, the structure is such, and it's designed in a modular sort of multipliable fashion, such that it was assembled in a month's time. It was fabricated remotely. It was got here, assembled, and then after 2 months, it was again disassembled and then sort of rolled up and packed away for anywhere else that you want to install it again. There is no glass used in this building, so it's a very lightweight structure, metal structure. And the shiny reflective surfaces that you see inside is all acrylic. That's how the pavilion comes together. It's a performance space. So inside there is these are images of how the trusses work. So these they were brought to site, I think less than in a month actually. It's all dry construction. You bring it to site, tighten it up, and then after the performance is over, just undo it and then take it elsewhere. So that's how it looks like from inside, metal as well as bamboo. The staircase that you see, it winds around this elliptical structure, also made in metal. Sort of viral image that went from our Instagram handle when the exhibition was on. Okay, this the Doon School Teachers Housing. This is a school. So the Doon School Dehradun existed since 1931. I think it's been around for about 80 years, which also means that they have that long old heritage, and structures have come up. It's a 45-acre site in Dehradun, and different structures have come up in the last 80 years because their numbers have increased, their requirements have increased. A lab here, a music department there, and in the series of these new constructions, the most recent one is this that we built, which was housing for teachers, because they wanted to have more masters and teachers to be residing on the campus rather than outside the campus. So we identified 2 pockets. These are 18 houses in all, and so masters, teachers living on campus in a place where students also live. It's a very tricky equation, because you want to be appropriately close to the teacher, but not too close as well. Even for the teachers, you see them, you live in your workplace practically, right? So you're seeing them in the morning, you're seeing them in the evening. That's your life. So how do you create a space where you can have that privacy, but also at the same time you can feel a part of the entire campus? The structure of the housing is such that it's 4 apartments to a core, so 2 apartments on the first floor, 2 apartments below, but they all sort of get independent access. If you see this, it sits amidst sprawling open greens, and the vocabulary of of the building elevation had to sort of give a nod to the 80 years of construction that existed on site, which was all in brick. So this is all a lot of it is constructed before independence, right? So the initial buildings were all exposed brickwork, whereas over here, because we wanted to also say that, we haven't completely copied the kind of architecture that existed then, we wanted to carry forward the legacy of the brick, but we wanted to use the brick in a new way. So we used actually brick tiles, which give the sense of, this red building that merges with every other red building around it, but still has this modern sort of contemporary touch to it. The portals that you see were also created to give that sort of an English bungalow look, but at the same time seem like they were made in the new millennium, right? They were made in 2014. The portals are made and clad in Gwalior stone, which gives that crisp edge that cuts through the red mass of the main building. That's the entrance. So you get the lower apartment gets an entrance from here, and the upper apartment goes through the core. So you pretty much don't sort of cross paths with each other. The students also are encouraged to come to the master's house, for a tuition or for clearing their doubts. So all of those sort of interactions happen through this and not from main core. More pictures of that. So that's how the main core looks. Absolutely open. You can get your bicycle right till the center. Also, I wanted to point out one important thing here. One of the challenges was, so Doon School is a very, very green campus. Dehradun itself, is blessed with a lot of greenery, and it just overall has great climate for vegetation. So Doon School itself, in fact, I think one of the trees that sits on Doon School is the oldest, this is what I know, oldest rubber tree in South Asia. So there are these precious, beautiful old trees, and we had to construct the buildings in the middle of these. Now in Dehradun, you cannot cut a lychee tree, but the other trees that were allowed to be cut, we also didn't cut them because we tried to build really close to them. This right hand side picture shows how the foundation and the balcony is designed in such a way that you go really close to the roots of these trees, but you don't damage them. So the tree, some of the trees, how the trees take having construction being done around you is that they sort of look a little sad for a few months, but then once the construction is stopped and the people start living and occupying the space, the tree again sort of takes its space around the building. So that was, I would say, quite an achievement for us on this project. I'm going to now show you 5 quick slides of some of our unbuilt work. I said in the beginning that we try to do things that we've not done before. So, and that extends to how we interpret the program, how we interpret the materials, and also the form. This particular building was a competition entry for the Baha'i temple. So the Baha'i faith believes that their architecture needs to have 9 corners. So this, sort of this shape evolved out of that requirement, and this was to be built completely in poured concrete. So that's a new shape that we explored. It prevents any, even if it doesn't have any glazings to protect, it sort of protects itself by how it's designed. It protects itself from wind movement and rainfall. This is another project. It also, in the unbuilt category, it's won an award. It's a hotel on a very, very thin plot, an impossibly thin sliver of a plot. No, I don't have a plan here, but how do you create a hotel which doesn't have, setbacks are going to take up a lot of that site. So you create a hotel which is like a thin sliver of wall, and if you see, the windows are then opening not onto the longer side of the elevation, but onto the shorter side, and you take it up to create this interesting shape here. This was in Siliguri. This is a hotel for the Mahindra group that we had proposed. It's in the shape, as you see, in the shape of the Mahindra. I forget the name of. Sorry, I forget the name of the vehicle now. But it's in the Lego format of that hotel. Each of these little blocks are like metabolic, particles in the design, and that sits across. This is in Igatpuri, yeah. That's another hotel that we're doing in Rishikesh. Modular structure, again all triangles. Because the slope of the site is such that it sort of lends itself to creating something which is structurally like this, modular and sort of plain across the slope of the site. And that's it. Good timing.
Yeah.
Ayaz, thank you very much.
Thank you. This is wonderful.
If there are any questions, I would be very happy to answer.
Yeah, so I request you to stop sharing your screen so we can have a conversation here in the Zoom.
Thank you.
Oops. There's something wrong with my video. Please kindly ignore it. So, Shruti, it was really wonderful to see the exploration, the kind of exploration that Anagram has been doing with materials primarily. Number one, definitely there's a lot of exploration with the materials that you do, and also at the same time the exploration with the form, the formal expression that comes primarily, yes, of course, from the program, from the context, and there's a layer of material and form that gets added and gives a distinct character to each individual project. But I was actually trying to sort of go through, all these projects that you showed. And in the beginning, you were talking about you're trying to, as a firm, discover the style or something that is, that binds your approach to all these projects. So what is it that you think that, what are those elements? What are those design directions?
Could you repeat the question? You're asking me what guides up our design approach? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. So I'm talking about, let's say there are certain things that common that I've observed is, one is that there's an exploration of the form. Let's say if I look at the residence of the artist, the way the two ribbons go, right? Now that's a formal expression. Similarly, in the digit also, it starts with an abstraction of the thumb, and then the form as is an outcome of that. So there is what I see here is that an exploration with the form, and also at the same time to bring the diverse kinds of material. Is it a consistent that is there in the projects that you do?
I think it is consistent for sure, and I think it comes from our own inherent desire to do it at the same time, not sort of trying to impose it on to the client. So in our first meetings, we tell the client that the project is yours; it's not ours. And I think we've been also lucky in the sense that the clients, we get clients who want that exploration. We don't get clients who want us to sort of copy the next building or come to us with a picture in hand and say this is what we want. So what helps in getting to that position is to be able to listen to the client, and hopefully the client has something, a unique desire, or a desire to express themselves in a unique manner. So yes, absolutely. I think we lose interest in a project that's not going in the direction where we know that even if we haven't got it today, and there are these bouts, there are these stages where you feel कि कुछ हो नहीं रहा, it's not going anywhere, you're not getting anywhere, it's not मजा नहीं आ रहा है. So all of that happens, but you still seek it absolutely every time and at every stage. So like you said, you could see it that It is not restricted to the program. It's not only about the form. It sort of bleeds into the way you're using material. It bleeds into the way you want to use a material this time. So there is a project that I didn't show you here, which has a concrete finish on top, but that concrete is not, it's colored concrete. So, colored concrete in the sense, so when you're mixing concrete, we added red pigment to it so we could get a red colored concrete finish. So absolutely, I think what drives us is that, like I said, the first core value is to be able to innovate and to be able to be in that space where you're trying to do something new and different.
Yeah. There's a strong exploration of materials, of colors. Also, there's a kind of a playfulness when it comes to the form that you're trying to explore. So all of this, and also many other characteristics, it reminds me of the postmodern approach to the architecture that we've all seen, in many of the architects' works. So, is the firm's approach to architecture influenced by any kind of postmodernism movement, or any architect whose work is inspirational or you look up to?
We do have our influences, but I don't think I will categorize them as postmodern, because I think postmodernism comes as a reaction to modernism. So I feel I think the way we approach design is not a reaction to this is not something I want to do, or it's not a reaction to I've been too sort of too honest or too forthright in how I was constructing, and therefore I want to beautify, or I want to take put a spin on something. It comes more from trying to, I think what we look at it as is a designer's approach, where you're trying to solve a problem. At the end of the day, you're still trying to solve a problem, but you're trying to put an elegant solution to it, So at least what we've read of postmodernist architects, I don't see there to be a similarity in that sense. But our influences would be more sort of recent, younger, contemporary designers. We really like Thomas Edderwick's work, for example. So to be able to question the question itself, in the sense, okay, that sounds corny, but before you provide a solution, you try to identify what the real problem is, and is the problem just making a house, or is that about doing or going to the next level? What more can we give the client that the client didn't even ask for? They came with a plot of land, and they came with a budget, and they came with some idea of what they wanted, but is it possible to give them even more than that? I think that's what drives us, and together with that, then in the means and the resources, the materials come in, and like I said, we've been blessed with great clients who give us a lot of freedom, who want to go on that exploration with us. They are very involved, and they are, they like the fact that we're trying these different things for them. I think that's what guides us.
Yeah, true. And another thing that I've observed is in many of the projects you've been exploring with bricks as a material. I mean, your first project itself, the SHRDC that you showed here in this presentation, also had a fantastic exploration with the brick as a material, and it has been coming up in many other projects also in some or the other way. Also lately I saw one of your projects is a school that you are doing here in Delhi, which has the twirling sort of walls made out of bricks as a masonry.
We've evolved our method now. We don't have to put block wedges. We've sort of updated our method of twirling the brick like that by having those threads. I don't know if you've seen the picture, but yeah.
So as a practice, you are fascinated with brick as a material. Where does it come from? I'm just curious.
Where do you think it comes from? So brick. So fascination is not limited to brick. I think a lot of the materials, a lot of different materials, when you go down to the brass tacks, when you go down to the base material, it's easier, or it's more possible to experiment with it, because when you work with a more evolved material, it's already gone through those evolutions and iterations, right? So you'll have to almost undo it. So brick in that sense provides the possibility to use it in different ways. Having said that, I think in the last 10-15 years, different kinds of bricks have been made more accessible to everyone all across India. I think that contributes in a large part to how you don't get over it, and you look at new bricks that are brought into market. You find local people who are doing these experiments with different terracotta items. Not just limited to brick as such, but all fire clay items. So I wouldn't say that it's limited or it's concentrating on brick per se, but I think it's a nice material. It sort of, the inhabitant also feels very connected with that original building block. I think it's that association with the original building block that sort of gets you, that keeps you attached to it. Our clients like it, we like it, but it's not limited to brick, I think.
Yeah, sure. I think there are many materials that you've been trying, and even in the Kudaram, the pavilion that you showed is a fantastic examples of how the steel and even the bamboo come together to form. It's quite a large span structure, and at the end of the day, it's a temporary structure which could be dismantled. So there is a material exploration of various kinds. I mean, it's not just of an aesthetics, but also the structurally how it can be, because when you're using the brick, you're taking it to the limits, and the same thing I could saw in Kudaram also. So there's that aspect also. Shreya, maybe if you have some questions, we can please.
I want to add here, because you brought up that I think in India we're really ready to explore and experiment with a wide variety of, I know that there are as many off-the-shelf solutions available, and there are as many people using those solutions, but there are equal number of vendors, craftsmen who want to experiment with these things and who are tickled as we are. They are tickled by this idea of creating something which comes from a very different story behind it. As in the case of Kudaram, which was that we wanted to create a structure that could be dismantled and packed away after a 2-month use.
Yeah. So in the beginning, you also mentioned 3 things which are at the core of your practice: innovation, commitment to sustainability, and also you said that the people come before the project. Can you tell us a little bit more about on the sustainability front? What are the various kinds of explorations as a firm you've been doing on that front?
So I feel that the approach to sustainability, when it's rooted in what I will call, for the sake of explanation here, what I would call middle class values, which is when you're trying to make something sustainable, the first step is to conserve, to use little at the outset, and then say that you can recycle it, you can upscale it. So I think, so we don't apply for certifications as much. We don't sort of go out looking for certifications or number systems for various buildings, but each of our buildings, we are trying every time in a new manner to conserve energy, to conserve resources. So in a recent project in Gurgaon, it's a residence. For the first time, I think in North India, I think it's the first time someone's tried to use the radiation, to use radiant cooling in a house, which is that so there is air conditioning, there is of course passive downdraft cooling, air cooling that people try in different buildings, but in radiant cooling you run coolant pipes through the walls and the floors, which sort of inherently it brings down the temperature of the surfaces, the walls that you are walking against and the floors that you're walking on, because when that brings down the ambient temperature in the room, that in turn reduces the load of air conditioning. So these sort of, again, the clients are very excited to use this, sort of try out this new technology in a residence setting. Offices may hota hai, but residences may, they've not done, the vendor themselves had not done before. So, or in other plotted house, we had created this underground water tank through which we had taken an air duct, before it was pumped into the building, so that the air conditioning load, when you run air through an underground tank, then the ambient temperature itself is going to be lower, and that will reduce the load on air conditioning of the entire house. I'm not sure people are really ready to completely do away with air conditioning throughout the year in a house. But, as designers, what we can do is reduce the energy consumption in a building. So I think for every project that has been, like I said, innovating on that existing technique in any manner possible that can reduce the energy footprint of a building, that is the core of how we approach all of our buildings.
So you're trying to explore all kinds of passive and active cooling techniques that are available and trying to work with that.
Available or not available. Sometimes we've had to sort of put together engineering teams together to find out a solution that works for a project.
Shreya, please feel free to join in with any questions that you have. You'll have to unmute yourself.
So there was a very interesting thing that came up in the conversation, that is people are the main source of inspiration for all the projects that are designed, So I had one question, that what exactly is the approach in which you design, to formulate the space in terms of its organization?
Say that again, please. I missed that. Please repeat that.
I'm saying that people are the major inspiration for your design, and even in terms of facade, you say that the client and the organization was the thing that actually influenced it. So how exactly design is approached in terms of organization, materiality, the facade development, and all the elements that actually make up a whole language of a space?
So the vocabulary of the building, interiors as well as exteriors, is guided heavily by the client and who the client is, their personality, their desires, their aspirations, right? We take very seriously, as part of our role, a sort of a responsibility to educate the client in terms of what fits in the narrative, what does not. Absolutely in terms of sustainability, what is better, for the entire overall energy assessment of the building. But in terms of, so we've had a project where the client wanted a classical looking building, right? And so we take that as a challenge, and we would try to get into that space through college. We've had a very, very modernist training in college. Our early 2000s education was very modernist in Delhi. So with, I would say, no background in that kind of architectural training, we then take that upon us as a challenge to then explore and find a true, classical vocabulary that fits the client's personality and also fits, the context in which the building sits. I think that it comes from a lot of interaction, a lot of back and forth, a lot of feedback looping with the client, and what their aspiration is, if I've answered your question. But really the client becomes the source, client becomes the starting point of what the building will then continue as.
Yeah. I think as a practice, I was going through your website, you are not just doing architecture, but also interiors, also urban design projects you are involved in. There are also art projects that you have been doing. Madhav has been particularly involved in many of the art projects. So how do these various diverse, activities, engagements help each other in the projects?
I'm glad you asked that, because we don't probably put it out there like that, but the way the practice is, Madhav has a personality, Vaibhav has a personality, I have a personality, Khyati has a personality, that sort of helps us cover a lot of ground between the four of us. And projects that are very large scale, like urban design projects, or even large commercial or residential hotel projects, are big ticket projects with high stakes, and not a lot of your ideas find space in those projects. Even then we manage to sort of do new things, different things, but there are a lot of ideas that come out through iterations and not all of them go to production, right? So then those find space or find expression or find some sort of an evolution in different other scales. So from designing a door handle or a chair, or to an art piece that gets sold. Some of our art pieces have gotten sold very early. It's a design machine, that our office functions as. You keep on churning design. There are sometimes designs that don't go beyond the first few sheets also. But whichever way they can find outlet, we are very happy to be able to, find that outlet in these different things. Expressions that come through urban design, because the concerns and the approach to what you're solving, or the way you're identifying the same problem that you'll identify at an urban design scale level, will be very different from how when you're designing a powder room, toilet. And when I say same problem, I'm talking about sanitation, let's say, right? So when the scale changes, the approach to that changes, and then what you can give more importance to also changes. In terms of glass, for example, there is one piece of art, Metaprism it's called, that we work with another artist, and it's a series of mirrors that were joined together to create this multifaceted sort of piece of art that you're not able to do that in a residence or a hotel, maybe not. But when you explore that through art, for that time at least you've sort of converted into an idea, and maybe God willing we can then execute it in a bigger project later. But I think it's really important for us to keep doing these seemingly unrelated different things, so that design machinery sort of keeps going.
Yeah, and they find expression one way or the other in some projects, and it's like a vocabulary that you are continuously exploring and building upon.
And there's a lot of learning from each of those different art projects that can then be plugged back into our architecture, so-called mainstream projects as well. So it's very important to us.
Very true, very true. In fact, you also mentioned in your bio about the community housing that you are interested in, and how it's important for the future of the cities in urban design projects. I think maybe that's a different presentation altogether, where we could have once again, perhaps in the future, where you could show and share us those works also, and where we get a chance to sort of discuss on that, and that also would be interesting. So I think we can sort of conclude we've already exceeded an hour, which is normally what we sort of try to follow. But it has been
time. Thank you very much. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's nice to be able to connect, and I hope I know that people will sort of enjoy this and hopefully respond.
Definitely, it has been wonderful. Then thank you so much to you, to the team, the Anagram architects, that you gave us your time, shared your projects, your thoughts, your views with us. And we again look forward maybe sometime in future to get in touch with you and keep in touch with you to see more projects that you will be exploring. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ayaz. Thank you.
And just on a concluding note, thank you for all the people who have joined with us on social media platforms. And we look forward to see you again. We are coming up with another interview series, which is going to be on the interior design and innovation. We've done it one version of that last year, and we are coming up with the second in the months of September and October. So I look forward to seeing all of you there. Thank you.